Sometimes, love begins with goodbye. In 1943, two strangers met on a crowded train platform and made a promise that would outlast the war. The air on Platform 9 was thick with coal smoke and the heavy scent of farewells. Soldiers, families, lovers all, caught in the chaotic dance of a nation at war. Among them was Eleanor, a young nurse clutching a worn copy of Pride and Prejudice, her ticket to a new hospital assignment tucked inside. And then there was James, a pilot with eyes the color of a summer sky, waiting for the same delayed train, his leave papers crinkling in his uniform pocket. Their eyes met across the throng of people. It was a fleeting glance, the kind you have 100 times a day with strangers. But this one was different. It held a question, a spark of recognition, as if they'd known each other in another life. A sudden surge of the crowd pushed them closer, and James, with a gentle smile, steadied Eleanor. "Careful there," he said, his voice a low, reassuring rumble above the station's din. "It's a bit of a jungle today." Eleanor smiled back, feeling a warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the stuffy station air. "It certainly is. I'm starting to think this train might never arrive." "They say it's just a minor delay," James replied, his gaze lingering on her face. "But then again, minor seems to be their favorite word for everything these days." His easy humor was infectious. They fell into conversation as if they were old friends, sharing stories not of the war that defined their lives, but of the small things that made them who they were. He talked about his childhood on a farm in the countryside, the smell of fresh hay and his dream of flying. She spoke of her love for books, the quiet joy of helping others, and her secret wish to see the ocean one day. For a few precious hours, on that chaotic platform, the war ceased to exist. There was only the sound of their laughter, the shared dreams, and the undeniable pull between two souls who had found a sliver of peace in the midst of turmoil. The train's whistle finally blew, a shrill, unwelcome interruption. The moment they had been dreading was here. Their time was up. I don't even know your name," Eleanor said, her voice barely a whisper. "It's James," he said, taking her hand. His was warm and strong. "And yours?" "Eleanor." The name hung in the air between them, a fragile, beautiful thing. He didn't want to let go. Colden, Elena," he repeated, as if committing it to memory. "When this is all over, will you let me find you?" Tears welled in her eyes. It was a crazy, impossible question. The world was uncertain, the future a blank page, but looking into his earnest blue eyes, she felt a surge of hope she hadn't realized she'd lost. "How?" she asked. "How would you even find me?" James reached into his pocket, not for his papers, but for a small, smooth river stone he'd carried 4 years for good luck. He pressed it into her palm. "Think of me when you hold this," he sighed softly. "And when the war ends, on the first day of spring, come back to this very spot, Platform 9. I'll be waiting for you. I promise." It was a soldier's promise, built on hope and a prayer. With a final lingering look, he boarded his carriage, and Eleanor boarded hers. As the train lurched forward, they watched each other through the grimy windows until they were just specks in the distance, each clutching a promise that felt more real than the war raging around them. The years that followed were long and brutal. Eleanor worked tirelessly in field hospitals, her hands mending the broken bodies of soldiers while her heart ached for the pilot with the sky-blue eyes. The small river stone was her constant companion. She'd rub its smooth surface during the darkest nights, the memory of his voice a beacon in the chaos. She read his name in the casualty lists with a racing heart, breathing a sigh of relief each time it wasn't there. James, meanwhile, flew mission after mission over hostile skies. He saw things that would haunt his dreams forever. But through the fear and exhaustion, the image of Eleanor's smile and the sound of her name were his talismans. He wasn't just fighting for his country. He was fighting for a future, for a spring day on Platform 9. His promise to her was the anchor that kept him sane, the reason he pushed through one more dogfight, one more perilous flight. Finally, in 1945, the guns fell silent. The war was over. The world began to breathe again, to rebuild, to hope. Eleanor returned to a London that was scarred but resilient. The first day of spring arrived, a crisp, bright morning full of birdsong and the scent of blooming crow. Eleanor's heart hammered against her ribs. Was it foolish to go? Had he survived? Would he even remember? Doubt gnawed at her, but the promise, whispered so long ago, was stronger. She put on her best dress, the river stone warm in her pocket, and made her way to the station. Platform 9 was different now. The desperate crowds were gone, replaced by families reuniting, their faces etched with joy and relief. Eleanor stood by the pillar where they had first spoken, her eyes scanning every face. The minutes stretched into an hour, then two. Her hope began to dwindle, a painful ache settling in her chest. Perhaps it was just a silly dream, a fleeting moment of wartime romance that had no place in this new world of peace. Just as she was about to turn away, a voice, deeper now but still achingly familiar, cut through the station's hum. I was starting to think this train might never arrive. She spun around. There he was, James. He was thinner, with new lines around his eyes that spoke of all he had seen. But his smile was the same, and his eyes were still the color of a summer sky. He was holding a single, perfect daffodil. Time stood still. In his hand, she saw he was clutching a small, worn copy of Pride and Prejudice. He'd remembered. Tears streamed down Eleanor's face as she ran into his arms. It wasn't a goodbye this time. It was a beginning, a promise kept against all odds, a love story that had outlasted a war, finally ready to be written. Thank you so much for watching our story today. If you enjoyed it, please give us a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next video. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, take care.